You got to hold on to that beautiful thing in life called hope, that there's a chance. We're not mathematically eliminated. There's a lot to play for.
Possible because it's tough. It's hard as, if Michael Jordan was on this team, he wouldn't be happy, so.
I have no idea how the New York Jets keep getting worse, but somehow they do. Honestly, I thought they could be serious Super contenders this year. But so far, they've been the complete opposite. And let's be real, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, even a small problem turns into a huge mess. He has a way of making things go from bad to worse fast. Stefon Diggs is out for the season, and the Houston Texans were missing Nico Collins during Sunday Night Football against the Detroit Lions. That meant Tank Dell was set to get more targets. But the problem was, I had no clue who the Texans' second wide receiver would be, which made predicting receiving yards tricky at the start of the game. Once the game kicked off, we saw John Mechie break out with over 65 receiving yards early on. By halftime, I decided to make a move. I checked Prize Picks and saw that Mechie only needed 6 more receiving yards in the second half to hit his square. Based on how the game was going, it felt like a no-brainer. I also noticed that David Montgomery only needed 50 more rushing yards in the second half to hit his square, so I jumped on that too. Easy picks, right? Hey everyone, let's talk about the New York Jets, because wow, what a roller coaster ride it's been for their fans. This team started last season with so much hope, especially after trading for Aaron Rodgers. Sure, the roster had its flaws. The offensive line wasn't great, and the wide receiver depth wasn't as solid as it is now. But they had some exciting talent on both sides of the ball, and one of the sharpest defensive minds in the NFL coaching them. Then, disaster struck. In Aaron Rodgers' very first series with the Jets, he tore his Achilles. Just like that, the entire season's outlook changed. Zach Wilson, who was supposed to spend the year learning from the bench, was thrown right back into the spotlight. Even though he had a decent game against the Chiefs, it was clear the team was struggling. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers somehow managed to make the season all about himself, hyping up a miraculous 3-month return from his Achilles injury. But by the time he was ready to play, the Jets were already out of playoff contention. Heading into the offseason, the Jets had clear goals: strengthen the offensive line and find a reliable backup quarterback. And to their credit, they delivered. They made some big moves, trading for Morgan Moses, signing players like John Simpson and Tyron Smith, and even drafting Ali Fashion in the first round. Things were looking promising. But then came one of the strangest offseason stories. In June 2024, Aaron Rodgers skipped mandatory minicamp to take a trip to Egypt. Yes, you heard that right. While recovering from his Achilles injury, he planned this trip, even after head coach Robert Saleh expressed the importance of minicamp. Instead of building chemistry with his new teammates like Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson, Rodgers was off exploring the pyramids. This brings us to a key difference between Rodgers and someone like Tom Brady. Say what you want about Brady, but his commitment was unmatched. When Brady joined the Bucs, he worked relentlessly to build chemistry with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Rob Gronkowski, even during the pandemic. That dedication is part of why Brady had so much success. Rodgers, on the other hand, didn't seem to have the same urgency, and the cracks started to show. 5 games into the season, after a loss to the Vikings, the Jets fired Robert Saleh. In my opinion, Saleh wasn't the problem. The plan was for Rodgers and his crew, Nathaniel Hackett and Todd Downing, to handle the offense while Saleh focused on maintaining one of the league's best defenses. But Rodgers didn't hold up his end of the deal, often pointing fingers at others instead of taking accountability. So Saleh became the scapegoat, and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich was promoted to head coach. But the Jets lost their next game to the Bills. In a critical moment late in the fourth quarter, Rodgers had a chance to win the game. Down by 3, he targeted Mike Williams on a deep pass, but the miscommunication led to an incomplete throw. And that sums up the Jets season. So much potential, but too many missed opportunities.
2 verticals, Allen's down the seam, Mike's down the red line. So I'm looking at Allen, he puts his hand up, 3 guys go with him, so I'm throwing a no look to the red line. And when I just peek my eyes back there, he's running an inbreaker. So it's got to be down the red line.
So was it really Mike Williams' fault that the Jets couldn't pull off the win? Let's be fair here. This was only their 6th game together, and we're talking about a quarterback who skipped mandatory minicamp and a wide receiver who's new to the team. Chemistry doesn't magically happen. It has to be built over time. In response to their struggles, the Jets made a big move by trading for Devin Adams, creating one of the best wide receiver duos in the league with Garrett Wilson and Adams. On paper, it sounded amazing, but honestly, I don't think it was a great trade. Why? Because it felt like another way to enable Aaron Rodgers. The cracks started to show again when the Jets got crushed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. After the game, Devin Adams didn't hold back. he openly criticized his new teammates. And just like that, the dysfunction in the locker room reached a whole new level.
A lot of these guys in here haven't been anywhere else where they've won and, have had that urgency that it takes in order to be a good team. So, this team being so talented on the, roster-wise, it's just a waste to have everybody out there and, to have a dead sideline like that. Brees catch a ball and go 60 and we can't feed off none of the energy. And those type of plays are supposed to be contagious for the rest of the team. So
they're just losing it over Aaron Rodgers. Honestly, who can blame them? He keeps making all these moves, but then he turns around and says things like this.
It's interesting the amount of power that people think that I have, which I don't.
But no worries, right? After that game, the Jets had an easy matchup against the New England Patriots, a team that's more likely to land the #1 overall pick than make a playoff run. It should have been a layup for the Jets, and yet they lost to the Patriots.
You gotta go in there, make peace with it.
At this point, all Aaron Rodgers could do was play the role of a wanted philosopher, dropping vague references to his infamous darkness retreat from a year ago. Meanwhile, the Jets managed to scrape together a 21-13 win against a heavily depleted Houston Texans team. Sure, it gave fans a glimmer of hope, but let's be honest, it wasn't the comeback story they were hoping for. The team had a 10-day break after that game, which should have been the perfect chance to build some chemistry. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. In fact, during that time, the Jets traded Mike Williams to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what happened next? Williams had an unforgettable debut with the Steelers. He only made one catch, but that single reception went for 32 yards and a touchdown. After the game, he couldn't resist taking a jab at his former team, throwing shade at Aaron Rodgers with the hashtag #RedLine. Honestly, he earned the right to do so. Seeing players like Williams thrive in better environments is one of the best stories of the season. Whether it's Russell Wilson revitalizing his career with the Steelers, Justin Fields showing out, or other players like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield finding their stride, it's proof that sometimes all you need is the right situation to shine. But back to the Jets. Their season hit a new low against the Arizona Cardinals, where they were absolutely humiliated in a 31-6 loss. And the worst part, Aaron Rodgers fumbled in the red zone, and Devin Adams, still sticking by Rodgers, went as far as to call him Michael Jordan. Really?
Possible because it's tough. It's hard as, if Michael Jordan was on this team, he wouldn't be happy. So, you can look at it however you want with that. But, you're not supposed to be happy when things aren't going great, but you do have to try to dig deep and find a way to fix it, and that's what we're trying to do now.
After the game, Aaron Rodgers addressed the media, criticizing the team's performance and calling out their inconsistency. It's almost ironic considering how much of that inconsistency seems to stem from him.
We aren't winning consistently enough, I don't think, week to week. We've had good games, good halves, bad games. The game's different, so it's on us, to fix it, obviously, but you're not going to fix it by doing the same thing.
After the game, Aaron Rodgers tried to stay optimistic, saying he still has hope for the season. What does he mean by hope? Well, technically, the Jets aren't eliminated from playoff contention yet, but for that to happen, they need to win every single game for the rest of the season, or at most, lose just one. Now, if they pull this off, sure, anything's possible, but the Jets have a bad habit of sabotaging themselves. Let's take a quick look at their remaining schedule. Asterisk, next up, the Indianapolis Colts, a winnable game. Asterisk then, a much-needed bye week. Asterisk after that, they face the Seattle Seahawks, who are struggling with a 2-game losing streak. Asterisk later, a division rivalry game against the Miami Dolphins, who've had their own challenges, mostly due to Tua's injury. Asterisk, and finally, they'll take on the struggling Jacksonville Jaguars, the LA Rams, and 2 big division matchups against the Bills and Dolphins to close the season. Theoretically, it's possible. This schedule isn't the hardest, but the Jets need to be perfect from here on out. Unfortunately, I've rarely seen teams in this situation succeed. The only recent example is the 2021 Las Vegas Raiders. After dealing with huge setbacks like John Gruden stepping down and Henry Ruggs' off-field incident, they still managed to rally and make the playoffs. But that team's struggles came from outside circumstances. The Jets, on the other hand, are the architects of their own downfall. On paper, the Jets have a roster capable of winning a Super Bowl. The front office gave Aaron Rodgers everything he could have asked for: an improved offensive line, familiar faces on offense, and solid weapons. Yet, here we are. Rodgers has been playing the worst football of his career, with a 62% completion rate and an 86.8 quarterback rating, the lowest of his time as a starter. Instead of taking accountability, he keeps pointing fingers, which doesn't help the team's chemistry. The biggest mistake this season, firing Robert Saleh. If you were going to start the season with him, you should have stuck with him. Now, Interim coach Jeff Ulbrich has to pick up the pieces, and the team has zero room for error. If the Jets want any chance at the playoffs, they need to lock in and win out. Otherwise, this season might go down as one of the most disappointing in recent memory. I personally don't think they can do it, but if you're a Jets fan, let me know in the comments section down below what you guys think. Aside from that, I'm your boy, Helmet to Helmet. I'm dropping the mic until our next upload. Peace.